I want to play my Gibson SG Standard 61. We'll find out if it's any good. And this video isn't like other videos out there where it's, 7 minutes of talking and then only 1 minute of playing. We're definitely going to be playing this thing, but I'll yammer on at the end. I'll also do some quick comparisons into some other guitar choices in the Gibson line that you might be looking at along with this. And as always, signal chain is listed in the description down below, along with the chapter markers, so if you want to skip ahead to certain amps, you can do that. But that's enough talking. Let's get after it. So you can't do a review on YouTube nowadays without talking about the specs, right? So I'm gonna try and do that quickly here for you. So we have a mahogany carved SG body with a slim tapered mahogany neck that has a bound rosewood fretboard with the trapezoid inlays. We have the inlaid Gibson logo along with the inlaid, it's either holly leaf or crown. I've heard it mentioned as different things throughout the years. This normally just comes with a blank truss rod cover. However, I was a nerd and I added the Les Paul truss rod cover. We also have the Gibson Vintage Deluxe tuners. We have hand-wired CTS potentiometers here with orange drop capacitors. 2 volume, 2 tone. There's no push-pulls whatsoever here. There's no batwing pickguard here. We have the smaller pickguard, so there's a little bit more wood in this one. 3-way toggle switch that controls the 60s Burstbucker pickups. They are also covered, and they used to be called the 61R and 61T. But that's enough talking. Here's 5 more sound samples. Now this is the internet here, so I have to appease some people, otherwise they're gonna cry. So what some people like to hear, which is beneficial, is this in clean with the bridge, middle, and neck positions. As I always say, I personally find a little more benefit in hearing a little bit of like light drive with those pickup positions, so here's that. So we talked about the hand-wired potentiometers here. Let's go ahead and turn some knobs, hear how they sound. Once we get to the tones, you'll actually hear the orange drop capacitors. If the tone is set to 10, so like set to stun, then the capacitors aren't being used. It's only when you dial them back. Now, one thing you may be curious about with the SG Standard 61 might be the Maestro Vibrola. So here are both of my Gibson SG Standard 61s. I'm not going to actually play both of these. I've done a comparison video on them. They are the same guitar. However, we have a Maestro Vibrola here. Now, I'm going to talk about the benefit or the potential benefit. So the big difference here, obviously, is the Vibrola. But not necessarily the Vibrola itself, it's the added weight that is, pushed onto this guitar because of that Vibrola. Gives it a little more balance. Yeah, it's still going to, if you're using a nylon strap, there's still going to be a little bit of neck dive. Not as much as, say, this one. Just use a leather strap, people. It's just, be safe with your guitars, then you won't have an issue. But, the added benefit here is the added weight to the guitar. So if you're used to a Les Paul, you're gonna feel a little off when you're playing this, but not as much with this one. I mean, you're still gonna have the guitar being pushed forward, that feeling of the guitar being pushed forward because of where the neck meets the body compared to a Les Paul, but Weight-wise, it's a little more evenly distributed on this one. But logistically, you're more than likely wondering on the difference between the Gibson SG Standard 61 and the Gibson SG Standard, other than the fact that, you know, this one comes with a hard shell case, this one comes with the awesome padded gig bag. There's definitely some ones here, you do feel the difference when you're playing in between the two. This has a slim tapered neck. This has a rounded profile neck, so it's a little thicker. A lot of people do feel that it gives it a little more stability, not necessarily drop-wise, but there's a little more comfort in knowing that the neck is thicker when it meets the body. And of course, where the neck meets the body on the SG Standard is a little higher up than on the SG Standard 61. It's a lot closer to the body, that neck heel. Standard 61 is hand wired with the orange drop capacitors. The SG Standard is uses PCB connections. So it doesn't make your guitar a computer. It's a cost saver, but if you're not into soldering and you want to replace the pickups, if you actually buy a different set of Gibson pickups that has the connectors on it, then there's no soldering. You literally just disconnect the pickups and plug them in. ABR1 bridge compared to the Nashville style bridge. And the SG Standard 61 here, from the 12th fret to the 22nd fret, is just ever so slightly pluckier than how it feels on the SG Standard. Of course, hard not to mention, this has the 60s burst buckers, whereas this has the 490R and 490T. So here's a bridge, middle, and then neck comparison between both of these guitars. Another choice you might be looking to make would be between the SG Standard 61 and the Les Paul Classic. Now there's definitely a lot of differences between both of these guitars. This is a lot heavier than this guitar, as this has the 9-hole weight relief, and this is an extremely thin SG, so there's definitely a major difference in weight. And of course, as I was stating earlier, where the neck meets the body is very different than where the neck meets the body on this. So when you're playing the SG Standard 61 or any SG, it kind of feels like the neck is pushed forward in comparison to on a Les Paul. The Classic is part of the Modern collection, so it's not hand-wired with the orange drop capacitors. It also has the PCB connections, just like the Gibson SG Standard. One of the benefits to that with the Les Paul Classic series is this has all 4 of the push-pulls, which means it would be a major pain for people to, you know, hand solder things. So there's a lot of benefit for quite a few people involved, whereas this is PCB rather than hand soldered. Price-wise, there is still a difference. It's a Les Paul, so this is definitely a lot more expensive than this one here, but there's definitely sales. They both also have the 60s burst buckers pickups in them. So here is a bridge, middle, and the neck position comparison between both of these guitars. So the last possible choice that I'm going to at least go over in this video, because it's going to make this video a lot longer, might be the Gibson Les Paul Standard 60s. So you have the SG Standard 61 and the SG Standard 60s. Both of these are part of the original collection, so that means they're hand-wired with orange drop capacitors. There's no push-pulls whatsoever. Both of these have the slim tapered neck, albeit this has the 60s profile, so it's ever so slightly thicker than a regular slim taper. Still a major difference in thickness. This is also not weight relieved, so it's a little more heavier than the Les Paul Classic, so you'll definitely feel a difference between both of these. You have the exact same feeling where the neck meets the body, so it'll feel like the neck is pushed a little forward than it is on the Les Paul on the SG Standard. And both of these also have the 60s burst buckers, just like the Les Paul Classic. There is a major price difference, but there's still sales. But there is still a major price difference between both of these guitars. So here is a bridge, middle, and then neck position comparison between both of these. Alright, so now that we've gone over all of the different sound samples, you've heard quite a bit of this guitar. This is really where I'm probably going to yammer on, and now that I say that, maybe I won't. But this is the part of the video where I like to go over whether I think this is a good guitar or not. So just like the Gibson Les Paul Tribute and the Gibson Les Paul Standard 60s, I bought this like a couple of days after I bought those guitars, so I've owned this for just about 3 years. And for the most part, this is my favorite SG that I own. I currently own 6. I did have 7. It's down to 6 just because I sent the 91 SG Special over to Kevin. It used to be that I would bounce between this and my SG Standard as my favorite. However, with the Maestro, I kind of go through between 3 as my favorite, and usually it is the Maestro that I enjoy a lot more just because of the added weight. I'm a Les Paul guy, so that really helps me kind of connect with the guitar a little more. But as far as how this works rhythm-wise, this is a fantastic guitar for rhythm, especially for extremely down-tuned metal. There's not really anything that compares to the SG when it comes to how dirty things feel when you've got them floppy strings from down tuning with 10 to 46 gauge strings. And as far as leads, I find that I can dig in a lot more because of the pluckiness when it comes to down-tuned metal type playing. However, I do usually give the edge to a Les Paul when it comes to anything but down-tuned. I just find that sometimes the pluckiness really works. Sometimes it gets in the way, if that makes any sense. Sometimes it's exactly what you're looking for, but a lot of the times I do find myself kind of venturing towards a Les Paul a lot more. And the 60s burst buckers here are great pickups. I do wish that there were some like burst bucker 1s, 2s, or 3s in this pickup, just because they're not as hot as the 60s burst bucker. A lot of people do prefer hotter pickups over kind of more dialed back pickups, but I am one person that does find, especially for, I keep saying metal and stuff like that, but for just about anything, I find it a little easier for me to dial in my amp just how I want it when the pickups aren't as hot. Doesn't mean that I don't like these at all, because I have it in 3 different guitars. They're fantastic, but I do find myself wanting to back the pickup off just a little bit. When it comes to the hand soldering with the orange drop capacitors, I'm one person that when it comes to playing leads, that's really when I'm going to be bringing the tone potentiometers and the capacitor into play. And what I do generally find that I do is I'll pop the guitar into the middle position for leads. Not always, but sometimes. And then I'll start dialing back on the volume on the neck, and then start messing with the potentiometer on the for the neck as well, just so I have kind of full blast, like the high end of the bridge, and then I get a little more of a low end sweeter tone. I've always found that that really works for me. I know that you know what I mean, you're blending the capacitors together, whether it's, you know, on full blast on the bridge or just being used on the neck, but that's really where I find the sweet spot. The difference definitely can be negligible, so you may not hear that, but just so you know that an orange drop capacitor is like $4. It's not expensive. All right, so that is all I do have to say. Hopefully I didn't yammer on too much. I know I generally do. I hate editing these videos, and if I ever rewatch any of my videos, which I don't generally do, I usually go with the like no talking ones because I hate hearing myself talk. And also when I do reviews, because I kind of hate doing reviews, I more focus on the playing because that's really where I'm having fun. I try to cover a little more than I normally would. If I have the guitars to do the comparisons to, I'll kind of tack that on to the end, because some people may be kind of curious on, you know, what other options there are out there sort of in this price range, or at least in the lineup. And some people are actually looking to get a little bit of different perspective on the comparisons between other guitars that they might be looking to buy in that price range. So that's why I'm doing it that way. Anyway, thanks again for watching. I say good day.